Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself inch by inch.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Tracy.
I have to say, you're looking very ethereal today with those sleeves.
Okay,
But also
that is hilarious. And I'll tell you why later. Yes, but also go
very,
on.
very wise. You just a wisdom about you. Even like we sometimes we record 2 episodes in a day. You look wiser now than you did at 7:10.
Wow. Okay, I will take that and put that in my back pocket. I love the ethereal and the wisdom together. It makes me feel like some kind of fey queen or something. I don't know.
Go write a book. Go write another book.
No, I have to finish this book first. Yeah.
Can't wait to read them.
Yeah, neither can I.
Well, so speaking of, so we just recorded, and hopefully people have listened to by now, episode 41 on generational trauma. Ancestral trauma, healing, like it could have had so many names, to be honest. I had a really hard time naming it. But we talked a lot about working through patterns that are preventing you or providing, blockages to you being or experiencing, the life that you want or who you want to be. But you kind of previewed this episode on feminine archetypes.
Yes.
And how, kind of move through the generational trauma and just kind of it's paving the way forward into this.
I really feel like it is paving a cool way forward. And I think that part of perhaps our learning, our schooling to work through the generational traumas is to put a feminine archetype hat on, or a hat of one archetype and a cloak of another, just to take that analogy all the way to the bank, to help you move through that, to help you heal.
And I kind of viewed it as you heal, you both have to be self-aware to heal, but then you also gain greater clarity and self-awareness, and when you're healed, you kind of see better, right? Like the blinders are either removed or the other people lenses are stripped away, and you can kind of see yourself more. And I kind of felt like when you're kind of talking about this in the preview for this episode, that maybe you're kind of seeing who you are more clearly, and that identifying through these archetypes and or creating an archetype or something, you can have a better understanding of yourself, which can further your own healing and how you're represented in the world. But one thing that kind of struck me, both when you're in the preview and when we were kind of talking about the show in general, what is an archetype?
Glad you asked. It's so funny because, of course, I know we've talked about this before. We write an outline. We write a show outline with some notes just to kind of keep us on track. Typically, halfway through the show, we're both like, well, let me tell you, blah, blah, blah. And the notes are, they're completely forgotten. We might like loop them back around. But while I was writing these notes, it was seriously like, I'm almost done. And all of a sudden I was like, but Amy, what is an archetype? Now, I do know what an archetype is, and I'm not saying that maybe you don't, but let's just get it on the table.
No, you know what? I am going to say, if somebody were to say, Tracy, define archetype, I don't know that I could. I could give you examples of them and where I've seen them, but like an actual, like, what is it and how do we use it in the world?
So I'm gonna take a quote from Carl Jung, our second favorite person besides my mom. Sorry, all our other favorite people.
Yeah, we rank you. We have it's like a MySpace top 8 friends list. Like we have a board. No.
So Jung says an archetype is known as a primitive mental image inherited from the earliest human ancestors and supposed to be present in the collective unconscious. So how I read that is,
Primitive.
yeah, basically it's a shared language and understanding around specific types of people, goddesses, uh, uh, what other term can I come up with?
Hearing that, it's categorizing personality types.
Yes,
in a
exactly.
Sense, right?
Yes.
It's assigning labels to
it
kind
is
of shared
assigning
characteristics
labels, and it's
that we
shared
see.
understanding. Yes. So that you're using the same language pretty much within a community, right?
So what are some examples of some, or am I jumping ahead?
No, you can jump ahead. I don't care. I mean, obviously, we use this one all the time, mother, maiden, crone, or maiden, mother, crone. Like that is one we use all the time. And I feel like I think the minute you say maiden, mother, crone, people get an image in their head or an understanding around each of those words.
And then those ones are also life stages. You go through them. You're not, and some people might not. You could be, 85 and identify as a maiden, I suppose. But generally speaking, it's kind of a linear pattern to describe aging and the kind of typical experiences a woman might have.
Yeah, that's true. They are. Yes, you're right. Something too that I think is very interesting, as a writer, writers use archetypes continuously. Like I mean,
you have to have really predefined characters.
You do. You have to have the hero. You have to have like the
villain, the sidekick, the best friend, the victim.
But it even goes deeper than that. There's, like the sage, the wise person, like who's going to help you, who's going to hinder you. But a lot of times too, the archetype, I think many times in many books, it goes back to gods or goddesses. And that's how we determine archetypes, is culturally through what the community has decided a certain goddess
and
represents.
Honestly, Greek gods and Roman gods and goddesses, that was in growing up, that was 7th grade education, was Greek gods. And that was kind of one of my earlier memories, aside from Disney princesses, of like deciding who I wanted to be, right? Like I wanted to be Athena. I wanted to be wise. I wanted to be a warrior. I didn't want to be the Aphrodite, right? Because I was looking at it in such that stereotypical way that you could see what I valued even in 7th grade at like 12 years old, that I clearly valued wisdom, right? Over something else. And so that's amazing that that's kind of where it kind of starts, or it goes back to.
Right. And, I have a book, and of course I don't have it right next to me. It's behind me somewhere, but in it, and you told me about this.
I love this book. Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. You actually take a quiz so that you can tell what goddess you are most like. And it surprised me because the goddess that I most identified the same with was Artemis. And at first I was like, Artemis, but then I was like, oh yeah, nature? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Goddess of the wilds, sign me up. But I also was like close behind were both Persephone and Aphrodite, which Aphrodite surprised me.
It doesn't me. And only because of what you shared of your own inner journey about moving from maiden and mother to crone.
Oh, okay.
Nothing at all about your own perceived, nothing about like vanity, or that you seem outwardly preoccupied with beauty and romance and love and the things Aphrodite is more generally known for. But because of what you've shared, and before you've even talked about like with your desire to be an actress and things like that, it makes sense that that's some undertones in your life. And then the Persephone, she's known for, she's in the underworld and the darkness, and so I think that's more like the witchiness that's coming out in you, and the spirituality. And
well, when I read about Persephone, I was like, oh yeah, 100. Plus, what I find so interesting, and I'm not like I am not an astrologer, but so I'm a Sagittarius, but my sun is, even though it's in Sagittarius, it's in the eighth house, which the eighth house rules like the death and like the underworld and
Oh,
mystery and things like that. That's
that makes
that whole thing
sense.
too. So that was super cool.
So
But as
when
I went, oh, go
I was gonna
ahead.
say when I read that book, it's like Divine Feminine Archetypes or something like that. Is that what it's
Yeah,
called? So
I can't
it was
remember.
written in the 80s. So like one of the descriptions, and I forget which one it's for, but it's for like the career woman. Is it the Athena?
I
Like
think it is
it's
Athena.
very much described as like a female 1970s newscaster, like just a woman who just wants to work,
Exactly.
doesn't want kids. She's a career woman. She's gonna broadcast the news. And so this
Yeah.
is a very, when you read it, you can definitely sense the undertones of the feminist movement and just like what's going on in the world in the late
Yeah.
70s, early
Yeah.
80s. But when I read it, as with all these quizzes and stuff I do, I tie so much stuff to my sisters. I have many
Sorry
sisters.
I'm laughing, but I think I
Okay.
know where this story is
But so
going.
I had an idea of what I thought that they would be. And then I had one of my sisters take the quiz, and she was exactly where I thought she would be. And I don't think she was super surprised by hers. I think she was like you, where she had like one really strong one and then a couple close that made sense. And,
Mhm.
she was uh, a mom, and like you could see where she was transitioning through her different life stages with the different people she was resonating with in this book, or the different goddesses. But we were arguing about my other sister and why. And then she read the book, and then I like shared with her a little bit more of my reasoning, and she was, oh, I see it now. And so it's so interesting. I don't know if my older sister ever did take it, but just even like the external view, like I was like, how could she not be this? And she's like, why would you ever think this? She's
Yeah.
this. And so even externally presenting, or these labels other people put on us, could be so vastly different. But then I took it for myself, and I was really disappointed, Amy. Do you remember what I got?
Yes.
I
Yes,
got
I
all of
do.
them equally. I was
Yes.
like, I so strongly wanted somebody to tell me who and what I was.
Yes.
And it makes sense that I got all of them, because at the time I was really feeling undefined. And that's because in the realm of like the known archetypes, I'm incredibly balanced. And that's such a great thing to be. And I know that now. But at the time I was like, why aren't I just like this?
Yeah. But so that makes me feel like then for you, why couldn't you just decide to say, this is my archetype?
And you know what? Even
This
right now,
is
I don't
who I
want
want
to.
to be.
I feel like
Why?
such a rejection of all the other ones, and I want to be all of them, because when I look at the Persephone and the Aphrodite and the Artemis
Mm-hmm.
and Athena, who are we missing? Because there were
Demeter.
five, Demeter, all these, I see all their positive qualities, right? Like a lot of these
Yeah.
archetypes, that's how they're written.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't want to be all of those things? And growing up, I was so identified by others, and I was probably, exhibiting it, but I really gravitated to it more because other people saw me as a tomboy, right? And not as the Aphrodite, not as the
Mm-hmm.
girly, not as the feminine. I was, quote unquote, the smart one, right? And then my
Mm-hmm.
sister was like the pretty popular, fun, ambitious one. And we both really went to that, to the degree where I feel like she felt like she was dumb for a really long time. She's not. And I, both overestimated how smart I actually was, like most gifted children do as adults. But then it was like I wasn't able to see the Aphrodite in myself and the femininity that came with it. And then I started to reject it because it felt foreign. And then reading that book really helped me both look at other people that identify 100% as Aphrodite differently, and then also how I exhibit that in my own life differently. And I'm sure as I transition through different life stages, kind of like with Maid
Mm-hmm.
Mother Crone, the balance might change, right? Like,
Right.
um,
You know what, Tracy, I love that you can say, I could view it and then see how it does or could come out in my life
mhm.
now. The other thing that I just want to touch on quickly is obviously, like we said, Greek or Roman goddesses here. Everyone has their goddesses. So, we love to talk. Like, I love Kali, just the destroyer, right? So perfect for our destruction episode. Or Lakshmi, who like abundance, but also, like the good partner, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful to look to your own, where you feel comfortable to view the goddesses and who you could view for your
Yeah,
archetype.
there are Native American traditions to go by. We talk
Mm-hmm.
about, just because of the Wheel of the Year, the Celtic ones come up a
Mm-hmm.
lot, Bridget and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in almost every religion, and like
I
even Mother Mary in the
agree.
Catholic
Yes.
religion and things. And so
Yes.
you can
But you
see
can
them
also,
displayed everywhere.
yes, and you can also go to more of the general terms, like from a website. It was called Women Love Power. Sorry about that, but that was the website. It's basically, it's the lover, the
Mm,
hunter or
mhm.
huntress.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hate it when they add the ess to words. Maiden, mother, queen,
Mm.
mystic, sage. Yeah, so I thought that was super cool. Like, yes.
Well, and what I like about that is it's no longer, the gods and goddesses is such just like blanket descriptions and how you identify,
Yeah.
but how
Yeah.
it's roles in the community.
Absolutely, it's roles. And not only is it roles in the community, but it also feels similar to the maiden mother crone, where
Mhm.
your roles will change as you age or go through
Yeah.
different life.
Unlike those external labels, you can
Mm-hmm.
really experience and
Yeah.
exhibit these differently if you're intentional with it, if you're really in the flow of the
Yeah.
transitions through life.
You know what? I want to talk about this for a second. This is like a random offshoot, but I want to talk about labels for a second
Mm-hmm.
and some of the things that we have been labeled in our lives that then we carry with us, whether it's true or not. And so I think of things like, if someone's ever called you a bitch, that is an archetype, right?
Bossy.
Bossy, know it all. Uh, uh, it just, you can come up with
Narcissist. Yeah.
exactly slut. Like, you could come up with all kinds of labels, and those become your archetype for who knows how long, even after maybe you are nothing even similar to the person that someone else decided to label that. And somewhere in the back of your head, you're still carrying that label.
Mm-hmm.
So that just another little added
Well,
benefit there.
and how many of us, if we're not feeling balanced, cling to a label and hide behind it and don't move forward, don't
Right.
transition through the different life stages, just
Yes.
stay in the more immature ones, or the things we've been labeled
Yeah.
at, as a way as to not have to grow and move forward because it's known, or it's
Ooh.
comfortable, or it's safe, even if
Yeah.
it doesn't really feel true.
Yeah. And
Or consequently, what if you saw the more Aphrodite type person labeled as a slut and labeled as all these bad things and
yeah.
labeled as self-absorbed and labeled as dumb, and then you shied so far away from that, you moved away from who you are because you accepted the negative connotations associated with these different archetypes.
And you shut down every part of that type of archetype in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is very interesting. And we do not have an answer for any of that. But I feel like, I really truly feel that if you can, now, obviously, like we said, this book, you actually took a quiz, and there's a million quizzes online for
And
what archetype are you?
this
But guess
quiz is
what?
so obvious too, that if
Yeah.
you wanted to be something, you could be something. Like if you
But
already
you know
know
what?
about these, you could.
Oh, there's some things that I have a problem with this quiz, because one of the things was like, your husband does blah, 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 blah. And that was supposed to mean that you were a very strong, powerful woman. I was like, no, that is not true. Anyways, I also feel like, why can't we be the choosers of our own archetype, or who we feel like if we could personify that archetype, it would help us move through the things that we're trying to move through?
I first realized people did that about 5 years ago, and it made me mad because I didn't realize you could. I was just thinking everybody came out fully formed with these great personalities and styles and this clear definition of who they were, and here I am just lost in the world and just being real basic. And then there was a famous YouTuber in 2014 I was following. She does My Drunk Kitchen, Hannah Hart. And a few years ago on her birthday, she was just sharing, or people were kind of making fun of her. She changes her style every year on her birthday, drastically changes her style, entirely new haircuts, new persona, new clothes, new look, new feel. And she spends time figuring out who and what she wants to be in the world, like how she wants other people to experience her. And that's when I was like, you can do that. you can pick. Anytime I've had a really corporate job, or even when I got the job at the library, I did decide, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do librarian chic. That's going to be my wardrobe. And I got cute cute skirts and I didn't even actually work as a librarian, right? It was a total poser. And it wasn't too far off from my normal style, but I just bought some new accessories, and it was just fun to kind of be more like 1950s kind of patterns and styles. And then when I got the job and I moved downtown, I went and I bought sport coats, right? I bought coats and I bought dress pants and these button-up shirts. And when I tell you, Amy, every day I wear those, I feel like I'm a little kid playing dress up. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so not like myself. I'm so clearly playing a part, and it's a part I don't want to be, right? I feel like it's back to 1980s, and it's, take your parents to school to talk about their work day, and I'm wearing my mom's shoulder pads dressed identical to her while she's talking about her big office job.
Yeah.
And so I still get intimidated at the thought, because whenever I try and, pick a style and change it, I feel like I'm dressing up, right?
Well, do you think have you ever found your style, or do you think that maybe you have found it and all these other things are just ridiculous add-ons?
I think I have found it. I think I am more just kind of utilitarian basic. I remember even before Gap made it a thing, wearing khaki pants and just a gray t-shirt one day, and my older sister just looking at me. I was in high school at the time, she's a little older, and just being like, God, I would look, that's just effortless style. And I was like, I just feel comfortable. I didn't get it until Gap made it a thing. And I was like, oh, now everybody does it, right? I like basic, and I like simple, and I don't want to put too much thought into it. But then I still see these people on Pinterest. I see these people in real life. I used to work at a company just full of graphic designers, and really people whose personalities shone through what their outfits were. And so again, when I took that quiz, it made sense. I'm really balanced. I will have a dress up day, or I will be fine adding something, but I feel super balanced most of the time. So it doesn't come out, clearly some of those people, I'm thinking one of the graphic designers, 100% Persephone. I don't think any of the other goddesses would show up in her quiz.
And see, so when you talk about it like that, I'm like, oh yeah, I dress like Persephone. Oh yeah, I dress like Artemis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I dress like this other person.
So there are different ways to show your balance too. You can have the different days of it, or you can be more like me, where it's just little bits throughout. It's not, you wouldn't super identify when you saw something.
So if you were, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot, if you were going to identify an archetype, made up,
Lara Croft. We've already talked about this. I'm going to be Lara Croft.
Right. Oh, I knew you were going to say Lara Croft. I knew it.
Tank top, cargo pants. I got it. No, I don't know. There's a part of me, because I know I shied away from the Aphrodite stuff so much as a kid, teenager, young woman. There's a part of me that really wants to try that, but it feels so foreign. Like I'm almost 40, right? Like, and to adapt that now. And then, like I said, though, like I had that realization just a few years ago, like, but you can, right? Like
Well,
I have
and there
grown-up
are
money. I can
ways.
do this.
Yeah, but there's also ways to show up like Aphrodite that have nothing to do with your closet.
Ooh, I like that. And I will say I have taken, we'll talk about this more next episode, but I've taken like workshops on the divine feminine. And like a lot of that is tapping into Aphrodite just by putting beautiful fresh flowers in your bedroom, right? Changing how you
Exactly.
decorate, the
Mhm.
scents you use, the foods you cook, the type of
Mhm.
exercises you do. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like it's not just your style and
It's
how
not.
it's
It
how
isn't your
the
style.
words you choose. Yeah.
Well, right. And for some people, it can come out like with your style, right? I feel like mine, especially when I was going into the office, would present as the clothes that I wore.
I mean, you had like there were certain days where it was like, ooh, Doctor Who, like 2018 Doctor Who like love it. Doctor Who is already a female doctor. I don't care about the online discourse.
Yeah.
Nailed it, looking amazing, right? But then the next day it'd be like, ooh, hippie wild child, tell me about that commune you grew up on as a kid, right? Like
Really?
you
Yeah.
had such good style, but every day was different. Like so much of your personality is expressed in
Okay.
how you dress.
Okay. I'm going to share something with you. It, I didn't use it to dress, but I was going to create this thing for women to figure out, like, what do I want to be today? What do I want to dress like today? So I literally made this
There's a
wheel.
spinning wheel. Ooh, with
It's
different layers.
yes. So you could be like a contemplative steampunk mermaid one day. Like,
What would that look like? What would that look like? Contemplative steampunk mermaid, go.
okay, a contemplative steampunk mermaid would definitely have she would have tortoiseshell glasses. She would have blonde turquoise hair. She would wear a faux leather jacket that was brown with a shimmer of green in it. And how's that so far?
I love it. It reminds me, I don't know if you've seen on like Pinterest or Instagram, the people who imagine Disney characters as different eras, right? So like what would Cinderella
Yes.
look in 2020? And
Yes.
then draw it out,
Yeah.
right? And
So
it's amazing how much you
literally,
can capture those
yeah.
types of
So
personalities and the archetypes.
the outer wheel was sort of more like personality. So happy, contemplative, optimistic, sexy, graceful. The inner was, I don't know, because I have trashy, French, American, country, contemporary, futuristic, romantic, gothic,
These are
steampunk.
types of fashion I don't even know exist. This is awesome.
Exactly. And then the inner what were actual more archetype, like the
Well,
hippie, mermaid,
and
boss,
what a
warrior.
fun exercise to maybe not even like discover yourself or even like what should I wear today, but just an exercise to experience how you would express yourself in those ways and like go to a thrift store and build that outfit and just wear it for a day as an exercise,
I'm
right?
doing it. Yep.
We're
No,
both gonna do it.
seriously.
Next
No.
time we
Yeah.
have a thing, like we gotta do it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like when everybody gets like, let's say you and your spouse or your friend each have $20 and you go and buy the other person an outfit, like either
Yeah.
something really fun and ridiculous to make fun of them in or what you want them to wear. This is so much better. It's like pick your archetype and then go and
Yeah.
be that in the world and see how it feels, see what it brings up in you, see how
Yeah.
it's expressed. And
Yeah, see what it brings up in you, because part of it too, for me, I literally had it sort of coined as dress your superpower, right? So yeah,
so
look
what
at
is
this.
what's your archetype? Oh, there it is. What's your
There.
superpower, Amy?
So my
If you created your own. So
my
those of you that
archetype is
can't see
Wonder
her,
Woman.
she totally has the Wonder Woman leather band on her head right now, and she's rocking it. She went from ethereal to warrior goddess. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Sorry, my vegan friends.
it was
I
a
got it
headband before.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, like I love Wonder Woman. And part of it, I think, is because of that sort of Artemis,
Mm.
archetype right? With so good in nature and horses. And I'm scared to death of horses, but I wish I weren't. And, just being able to bow and arrow and run here, but also truth. Remember, she's got the lasso of truth. And she's very brave. She's very smart. She's
an Amazonian.
She is an Amazonian, and she's very fair. Like, I feel like she always is, yes, justice. Exactly. So I'm going to take this off now.
I wonder, so I got to ask, so Wonder Woman, especially your demographics, I think that was one of my mom's like go-tos when she was a kid. And
I think your mom and I are of an age.
Yes. And so I have to wonder though, because how you were describing her and Artemis is independence. And so were you always that way, or is it something that you maybe after certain experiences in your life that you then gravitated more towards the independence, or even acknowledged like, I can do this on my own. I am strong. I am Wonder Woman. Like,
yes, to all of that. And I think that is just something that I want to cultivate more of, to show out to the world the independence nature of that. I love that, because I hadn't actually even verbalized that or thought about that.
Because like, I joke about the Lara Croft thing, but it's no different than me wanting to be Athena, right?
Yeah.
She's really smart, she's really independent, and she's really physically capable. And those were all things that I aspired to in my youth, right? Like, she was skilled. I wanted skilled. I didn't just want to be pretty, which is how I viewed Aphrodite. She's so much more than that. Aphrodite also makes other people feel beautiful. She makes other people feel good.
Ooh, I love that.
She's about romance and love and connection and relationships and just beauty in life and general, right?
Yeah. And she's also, I read in that book, she's also about the body is sacred. And so, I mean, that's super cool.
Yeah. And, like, and as a kid, it makes sense, because when I was hearing about this, I was really immature. I was a year younger than all my classmates. I wasn't really into dating yet. Right. Yeah. So in 7th grade, my birthday's at the very end of August. It was like the cusp for whether or not you got to be in a certain grade. And so I was a full year younger than everybody else. I wasn't into romance, and Aphrodite is the seductress. Like, she's seductress. Seducing, about the lover, about the body, about the physicality. And I was an overweight, surly 7th grader, right? Like, and so it was too hard.
Surly 7th grader.
When you think about like, who was my archetype truly until about 30, it was Nia's character in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the main woman in there, right? Like, I was very much like her, where I didn't blossom or feel like a woman until 30 and over, right? And so as a kid, I rejected the Aphrodite, and I just was like, oh, she's just pretty. Who just wants to be pretty, right? Well, I didn't feel pretty, right? So it made sense. But like, looking at some of these other goddesses in the book, like Hera is the matriarch, the empress, like Zeus's wife. Like, she's controlling things, she's getting things done. And then who's Hestia? She's also a mystic.
Well, this was from a different list. This wasn't from the book. This was from a different list. And so Hestia, I think, is she Roman? Because this list also has Isis on it, which Isis is Egyptian. But
Hestia is a Greek goddess of the hearth. So she's a daughter of one of the 12 Olympic deities.
Oh, isn't she the daughter of Hera? Well, okay, we're way off.
Cronus and Rhea. When the gods Apollo and Poseidon became suitors for her hand, she swore to remain a maiden forever. Whereupon Zeus, the king of the gods, bestowed upon her the honor presiding over all sacrifices.
Oh.
So that's why she's a mystic. Yeah.
All right. There you go. Well, to just kind of get back to like creating our own, and the fact that like you're like Lara Croft and I'm Wonder Woman, there are ways you can look. If you have a tarot deck, you can look through the tarot deck and find.
I have 3 decks behind me,
right?
But what did you do with your decks?
So honestly, do you know what I did for today's poll? I mean, I pulled out all the feminine cards.
Presenting cards, yeah.
Feminine presenting cards. So, I mean, not only do I have the Empress as one of the archetypes, I also have the Knight of Pentacles. And
which some decks, so in the original Rider-Waite, they aren't super balanced gender-wise. More recent decks are becoming more balanced. So in the deck she's showing on YouTube right now, these are females presenting characters on the cards.
Page of Swords. I can't quite tell, but I feel female presenting. So, and then of course, you know, I mean, there's the queens, you know, Queen of Wands, all the queens. So I pulled out all the female cards, like literally, and then I shuffled them and then chose a card from that. I mean, but before we get to the card that I chose, one thing that I was thinking about was, yes, you can. What if you created your own archetype? But also, like, do you choose your archetype or does your archetype choose you? So we both chose like an archetype we really like, but you could do something like this if you had an oracle deck or a tarot deck. Yep.
So I frequently do it with the Goddess Guidance Oracle cards, or frequently when I first got this. It's something I would kind of do where, kind of similar to tarot, where you can pick, you know, draw 3 cards for your issue and it's like past, present, future. Like what I would do is like, who is most presenting my life right now? Where am I devoid, and who should I call on, or, you know, something like that. Yeah. Or like who's coming in, or whose support do I need?
Yeah. Yeah. And so you could create your own, you could pull 1, you could pull 3, you could do what I did, pull feminine presenting cards and ask yourself these questions. I mean, I think that who do you need to be? How do you need to act? What's in your highest interest? Just sort of the same thing. You could ask other people, how do they see you? Like how, and you've brought this up before where you call on your friends to let you know what you're good at or what you're doing, but you could even take it a step further and say, who do you see me as? Like, I love it that you, thought about your sisters and predicted which goddess they were. But also,
or how they present to me, right? Yes, like they might identify totally different. So leaving space for them to have that.
Well, right. You can't be the boss of
I don't get to tell them, but when I read this, oh my God, this is so
Yes. You can get quiet with it. You can meditate, you can journal on it. I mean, I think there's all different ways that you could use this. And then once you choose it, then dig deeper into that and what it could mean to you. And this maybe the symbolism in the card or the goddess or the different stories around the card or the goddess.
And some of these archetypes, right? Like they're all in us all the time. We're choosing how they present. It's not necessary, you know. And so some of this too is sometimes it might feel when tapping into one that you don't usually go into or that you don't think you are, it might not be that it's wrong. It might just feel itchy, right? Like it might just might feel because it's so new and different.
Yeah, that might be exactly what you need. Sink into that discomfort.
I so often say, you know, the thing, like if it scares you, it's probably a good thing to try, right? Like why look into turn it over. Why is it scaring you? Like don't go and, you know, stick your hand on the stove. Like that's a different type of fear, right? Like, so be smart about it. But if it's something where you're apprehensive about it, or once I was in therapy and he's like, you know, these 3 themes came up, which do you want to work on? And I was like, I'm really apprehensive about that one. So maybe that. So
I love it that you were that self-aware.
Oh, he said that. And I was like, I ain't paying you to help me through things I already know about, sir. Like if it feels prickly, I don't want it to feel prickly anymore. Right. And so some of this stuff, like some of these goddesses, when I look through it, you know, there's kind of like that yearning, like that little girl, like, oh, I wish I could be Wonder Woman, or I wish I could be more like this.
Yeah.
Go there. Like, why do you think you're not, and why do you think you can't be, and what do you think is missing, and then try it on, whether it's for a day or for the rest of life. I don't know, but like Try it on. See how
Try
it
it
fits.
on. I'm just going to try it on. Yeah. There you go.
Wonder Woman.
What? Thank you for singing that. So, are we ready for the universe?
Are we ever?
Yeah,
That could really be
exactly.
said in two intonations. Are we ever? Or
Yeah,
are we ever?
Are we ever? So I
both,
did that with my deck, with the spellcaster's deck. I pulled out all the what I viewed as feminine archetypes, and then without looking at the cards, chose one, and I got the Queen of Swords. And in this card, this Queen of Swords, I love this card's Queen of Swords because she's looking right at you, and there's a huge bull, just like it's like a dog laying next to her, but it's a bull. And instead of in the traditional Rider Waite Smith deck, the Queen of Swords is holding her sword straight up, and this queen has it in the ground, like almost like
a power
what do you
move.
have? Yes, very much a power move. So when I looked at this card, I was basically like, okay, if I'm using this as an archetype, like how would you use this card? So this queen definitely is certain of her power, right? Her sword, like I said, is in the ground. It's stabilizing her, defining a boundary around her boundary, right? So what could you use to stabilize your life and to set clear boundaries? So that's kind of, so for me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, I could use my planner better in order to stabilize my life, literally.
Yeah.
And then as for setting clear boundaries, first I would need to understand what my boundaries are.
Well, and to give some people an idea in the realm of what we're talking about here, clear boundaries would be, I say who I am in the world.
There you go.
I say.
And what then you use your mental sword to cut away the clutter.
Ooh. So apart from the archetype, whenever I see the Queen of Swords in a reading, what I immediately think of is she is decisive. And so in terms of what we're talking about now, it's deciding who you are, being clear of mind and intentional, and then making it happen. She's also really ambitious. So while you were talking, if people were watching on YouTube, it looked like I wasn't paying attention, but I have the Biddy Tarot deck, which is a really feminine deck. So they both balanced out the cards similar to Amy's in terms of gender division between the different suits. But they also, it's just really feminine color and design and the lines. But the Queen of Swords looks like a Greek goddess.
She does.
She's on a throne in the clouds with their hair up and a crown and just like just the flowing, white toga style cape.
She does look
but
like
she's
a
just
Greek
sitting
goddess.
there like a god. She's just like a goddess, like nobody tells me, right? Like I tell you, I'm here, I'm presiding over. So I don't know, she's just so fun on all. I'm interested in what she looks like in some of the other decks, but that's a beautiful message. I love getting that.
So now what's happening?
Oh God, so many things, Amy, but I think we're talking about the next episode. So regardless of gender, we all have aspects of masculine and feminine in us, right? It's all kind of about balance. And so now that we a little bit more about feminine archetypes, or even that we can choose our own archetype and how we present, we're going to chat about how to recognize, honor, and activate the divine feminine and masculine we all carry to lead a more balanced and divine or blessed life. So
I can't wait to talk about that. I actually did a 21-day meditation journey with Deepak Chopra, and dang it, Amy. Oprah? Anyways, I'll remember next time. And it was all around the divine feminine. So super excited about that. And I love it. Can't wait for the next episode. So if this episode spoke to your soul, please share it with a friend. And if you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. I just want to do a shout out to everyone who has done that already. Thank you so much. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast, or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day.